Today's episode of How Did Jason Do That is brought to you by Tenacra, Bellcat, Realms, Microsoft Forms, Power Automate, Teams, and Outlook. Hello and welcome to How Did Jason Do That? Today I'll be showing you how to use Power Automate to automatically create a team once a manager has approved it. We'll be using Forms, Power Automate, Teams, and Outlook to achieve this. To do this yourself, you will need a Microsoft 365 tenant with access to Microsoft Forms, Teams, Power Automate, and Outlook. If you don't already have an M365 license, head over to Microsoft 365 and get yourself one. Before we get started today though, don't forget to hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you can get notified when another one of my videos becomes available, and please leave your comments below. This is going to be a long one today, so grab yourself a coffee and a snack. Let's do this. My first step today is to create a SharePoint list so I can track all of the requests, whether they've been approved or rejected. So for that, I'll use a SharePoint list. So within my SharePoint site, I'm going to go to Site Contents, and we'll create a new list. I'll go with blank list and name it Teams Requests, and hit Create. The default title field I will rename to Team Name. Hit Save. The next column I want to capture the description of the team. So we'll call it Team Description with multiple lines of text, and I'll hit Save. The next column I'm going to choose Person because we're going to capture the people who are admins. So we'll go Person and go Next. I'm going to call this Admins. I like to have profile photos, so I'm going to say yes. And we're going to allow multiple selections because there's going to be multiple, or hypothetically could have multiple admins. So I'll hit Save. I'll create another Person column so we can track the members. And again, we will allow profile photos and multiple selections. I'll hit Save. The next column is a yes/no, and we're going to ask whether or not the team is private. We're going to say no as the default value. The difference between a private team and a public team is a public team is viewable by everyone within your organization. A private team is restricted to specific members. We're going to add a choice column so we can capture the approval status. The choices we'll go with is not started, in progress, approved, and rejected. I'll color code these up. To something appropriate, and make the default value not started. We'll call this approval status and save. The final column I'm going to create is a multi-line field. I'm going to call this approver notes. Here we'll track any comments that the approver enters as to whether or not they approve or reject. I'm also going to choose append changes to existing text. That way it puts a timestamp on any approver notes. And I'll hit Save. Now we have a SharePoint list that's ready to receive Teams requests. We are going to create the form that will take the values that will go into the SharePoint list. So from the M365 icon, I'm going to choose Forms. In Forms, I'm going to click New Form. And in the title, we'll call it Teams Request. Our first question will be a text, and it will be team name. The next one will be team description. We'll make it a long answer. Now we'll choose another text field for admins. And in this case, I'm going to separate names with a comma and a space. I'll just copy that so I can use that again. The next one will be for text, and we'll call it members, and then paste in that. And we'll give them a choice field finally. Is this team private? We'll add the options of yes and no. So there's our form. Just click on preview to see what it looks like. We have our team's request, team name, team description, the admins, separate names with a comma and a space, members, and is this team private? Perfect. Now our form is ready to start accepting information. What we want to do is we want to get any submissions within this form to go inside our SharePoint list. So now we're going to open up Power Automate. From the Microsoft 365 menu, we will select Power Automate. In Power Automate, we'll drop down the new flow and we'll select Automated Cloud Flow. In the name, I will call it New Team Request from Forms. The first trigger we see is when a new response is submitted through Microsoft Forms. So we'll select that one and we'll hit Create. From the form ID, we'll pick the form, New Team's Request. Our next step will be to get the values from that form. So again, I'll just search for form and get response details. From the form ID, we'll again choose the form that the information is going to be pulled from. We'll just choose response ID from the step above. I'm going to hit save. I'm actually going to try this out. I'm going to call this Jason's test team. I will give this some sort of long description so I can fill up a field in a SharePoint list! Exclamation point. There we go. Let's have some names in here. So I'm going to throw in a few of my favorite musicians in here. And I do have these people ready to go in my Active Directory. Unfortunately, Forms won't allow you to pick people from Active Directory, but you can put names in and we can loop through them, and I'll show you how to do that later. So I'm going to choose a couple of people that I have already entered in my Active Directory for this purpose. Perfect, now I have some people for my admins and my members. For this team, I'm going to mark it as a private team, yes, and I'm going to submit it. Now let's go back to Power Automate and have a look. And it looks like it ran. So let's have a look at so it did exactly that. It pulled in the response. So when the response was submitted, it pulled in the response details, and you can see them all here. Perfect. So I'm going to edit this again. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize a variable. I'm going to call this var private so I can record the value of whether the user has chosen private or not. I'll copy that var private and I'm just going to rename the step to initialize var private. Just hit save. I always hit save after every step just to be safe. I'm going to create another variable. We're going to call this one r admins. The idea here is I have some admins and I want to create an array of admins. So I'm going to call it r admins and I'm going to choose type array. And we're going to leave that empty. Again, I'm going to copy that name and rename the step so I know exactly what's happening later. Hit save. The next step is I'm going to compose So I'm going to compose another array just to capture the admins that I will then stuff into our admins later on. So I'm going to call this, so I'll get this one and I'll rename it compose another admin array. I'll click on inputs and choose expression. What we're going to do is we're going to make another array. Let's just type an array within the expressions and brackets. And within that, we're going to split what is returned from the admins on the form from the comma separated values. So I'll select dynamic content. I will choose admins. If we scroll to the end, after we put that in, we're going to put a comma and we're going to tell it within single quotations that our separator is comma and a space. If you remember, the form is asking for you to put in names with a comma and a space. This is where it's going to separate all those values and create an array of them. So we'll click OK. The next step, we're going to do a control, and we're going to loop through each of them with an apply to each. So to select an output from the previous step, we'll click in there, and we'll choose outputs from compose another admin array. Inside there, we'll add an append, and we're going to append to array variable at the bottom here. The array we want to append to is the initial radmins array. And what we need to do is we need to create an object that the SharePoint list will accept when it comes to the names. So I'm going to, within curly brackets, I'm going to put double quotes. Inside the double quotes we'll go claims. And outside the double quotes I'll put a colon, a space, and a couple of extra double quotes. Within those, I'm going to choose, I'll scroll to the bottom, of our dynamic content and current item. So whatever comes back from this admin array, this secondary admin array, with the values that are comma separated, it will apply to each one of those and create an object like this that it will then stuff into the radmins. So let's hit save and see what this looks like. I will hit test from a previously used trigger, and we are successful. So let's have a look at this. We'll apply to each and append to array variable. It appended a object for my first admin, and it appended an object for my second admin. Perfect. I'll go back into the flow and I'm going to rename this apply to each. Apply to each another admin array. I want to make sure that each step has a good label so you understand what's happening. Now we're going to do the same for the members. I'm going to initialize a new array. We'll call it R members. Again, I will rename the step. So I'm initializing the R members just like we did initialize R admins. It's going to be an array again. So we're going to compose another array to handle the members. So I'll type in compose. And I'm going to rename this one, like above, another member array. On the inputs, I'll click in there, choose expression, and we're going to create an array out of the split of the members. Again, scroll to the end, put a comma, and within single quotation marks, I'm going to go a comma and a space. That is our delimiter. I'll hit OK. Now we're going to loop through again by choosing another step. We'll go to Control, Apply to each. And before I get started, I'll just rename this one, Apply to each another member array. And again, we're going to create another object. So we'll choose outputs from the step above, compose another member array. I'm going to append to an array variable. We're going to append to our R members array. And we'll do the same thing again. Within a couple of curly braces, we'll go double quote. We'll call it claims. And outside of those double quotes, we'll go colon, space, another double set of quotes, and inside the claims, we'll put in the current item from the bottom. Let's hit save and test this out. I'll go test from a previously used trigger. And we had another successful flow run. So again, we'll have a look. We have two admins. One is named Nuno Betancourt. The other one is named Gary Sharon. It then initializes a members array, builds up another array with the comma separated values, then loops through them, creates objects, and there's 3 of them: Pat Badger, James Hetfield, and Kirk Hammett. That's perfect. Let's collapse these now. Okay, let's edit the flow again. We'll just collapse this one. So the next step we're going to do is check to see whether the team is private or not, and then set that var private variable above. So we'll go new step. Actually, let's drag this var private down so it's closer to what we're going to do. I'm going to do a control condition, and I'm going to rename that. Condition is team private. From the choose a value, we'll click in there and we're going to scroll down to, is this team private? The answer that was pulled back from the form. And we'll put the value that comes back from the form as yes. So if the team is private, we're going to set this var private variable. So I'll just say set as an operation. We'll choose set variable. I'll just rename this one set var private to true. So I'll choose var private as the name, and the value is going to be true. We're using Boolean values, so it needs to be true or false. Yes and no just looks nicer in the form. We just need to convert them into trues or falses. So again, if it's yes to being private, it makes it true. Or if no, then we're going to set that variable. And I'll name this one set var private to false. So the variable we'll choose is var private, and we'll set the value to false. Perfect. We'll hit save. Let's give this another test. Flow ran perfectly. We'll have a look through. It looks like the team was set to private, so it went down this branch and it set the var private to true. Okay, now that this was successful, let's go back and edit the flow. Let's collapse this condition as team private. The next thing we're going to do now is add this request to the SharePoint list. So I'll choose an operation. I'll search for SharePoint. And we're going to create an item. I'm going to rename this one in Teams Request. So we'll choose the site that the list is in, and I'll choose Teams Request as the list. This will open it up and we can start entering values. So in the title, we will add in from this form response team name. In team description, we'll add in team description. For admin claims, instead of clicking in here, we're going to click on the input so we can just throw in what comes back from the admins array. We'll do the same with members. We'll click on switch to input and we'll choose members, our members. We'll choose private team and enter custom value. The value we will use is the variable var private, which we've set up before. And now that this is starting, we're going to change our approval status value to in progress. I'll hit save, and let's give this a test with a previously used trigger. So we'll hit test, choose the first one automatically, hit test, and the flow ran successfully. Let's just open it up first and have a look. It created an entry in the list called Jason's test team. It gave the long description I had. It gave it the objects in an array for the admins and the members. It marked the team at private to yes and set the approval status value to in progress. So let's have a look at the list now to see. I'll refresh this and we can see our new request has come into the SharePoint list. So perfect. And now we can see the new list item with all the details, including our admins and members from the array of objects that were given to it. Okay, for our next step, let's send an email to the requester to let them know that their request has been received and that an approval is imminent or rejection. So under the create item in Teams request, let's create a new step. We're going to search for Outlook. And we'll send an email. Let us pick dynamic content, and we'll choose the responder's email, the person who entered the form. In the subject, we'll say, your request for team in quotation marks, I'll throw the name of the team that they're requesting. In the body, I will say, hello, your request for a team named, and we'll throw in again the team name, has been received and is under review. Power Automate team. Let's hit save. Give this another test. I'll open up Outlook and we'll see that the email has come through. Hello, your request for a team named Jason's test team has been received, is under review. Power Automate team. Perfect. Let's go back into Power Automate and edit. Let's edit this flow again. Okay, now our next step is to send an approval request to someone. Let's go to New Step. I'm just going to search for Approve. We'll choose Start and wait for an approval. From approval type, we'll select Approve, Reject, First to respond. In the title, I will type in request for new team, and in quotation marks, I'll put the name of the requested team name. I'll assign this one to myself as the approver. In the details, we can put in all the information that the approver will need to see. So I'll say team name, we'll put in the team name. Team description. Admins. Members. Private team. Requested by. And we'll put in the requested date as well in here with the submission time. In the link to item, we can make it click back to the SharePoint list item that we created. So I'll click in there and we'll have a look. Under create items in team request, we will see, if we scroll down, we will see link to item. So we'll add that in there. And for item link description, I'll just put again the team name. And I'll hit save. Let's give this a test. And now it's waiting for an approval. So let's go into Teams and have a look. And right there at the top of activity, I had sent myself a request. Let's have a look now. So I have a request for new team, Jason's test team, and it brought in all the information for the test team, all the people that are needed. It is a private team. It's requested by me at this date. Perfect. So for right now, I'm just going to approve so we can finish off this workflow. Perfect. Let's go back and we could see that the flow ran successfully, and it did start and wait for an approval. Perfect. Okay, let's go back into editing of the flow. What we want to do now is add some conditional logic to handle what happens when the approval is either approved or rejected. So the next step, we'll just add a bit of conditional logic. We'll go control, condition, and I'll just rename this condition of approval. So what we'll choose in the value option here is, we'll just scroll down a little bit. We're going to choose the outcome. When the outcome is equal to, and we'll use the word specifically approve, because it will bring back either approve or reject. So if it's approved, what we want to do is, first let's record that into the SharePoint list item. So I'm going to type in SharePoint. And we're going to update. Scroll to the bottom. And we'll update item. Again, we'll choose our SharePoint site that the list resides in. We'll choose a list name, which is Teams Requests. And the ID is just the ID that was created previously when the new item was created in previous step. So choose that ID. We're not going to change anything with the title or description. We're not going to change the private team, so we'll just choose enter custom code and leave it blank. Now we're going to change the approval status, and we're going to call it approved. We're also going to throw in the approver notes, in brackets, I'm going to put in the outcome of the approval. So I'll just choose outcome. So it's going to say approved in brackets. We'll go space. And we're going to put in, right after that, the responses comments. So the comments are made by the approver when they're either approving or rejecting the flow. We'll put that in. We'll see it automatically wraps into an apply to each. There's a possibility that the workflow could have multiple approvers. In this case, it doesn't, but we'll just keep this apply to each. Makes it automatic anyway. On the no side of things, we'll do the same thing. Actually, let's name update item approved. Now we'll go to the other side. We'll choose an operation. We'll choose SharePoint. Again, and we're going to choose update item. And this time we'll rename it right off the bat. We'll say rejected. Because we're only going to handle two options. It's either going to be approved or rejected. So again, we'll choose the site that the list is in. We'll choose the list name, which is Teams Requests. And we'll choose the ID that was created in the step above. We'll go through here. We'll make sure, again, we're not changing any values throughout, so that's fine. We're going to choose private team, go enter custom code, so it doesn't alter that. We don't want that to change. But we do want to change the approval status value to rejected. In the notes, I'm going to go within there and go rejected for the notes. And I'm going to put in, again, just like before, the responses comments. And again, we'll put that into an applied to each loop, and that's absolutely fine. The next step here, before we test it, I'm just going to put a terminate at the end of this. The idea is that if it's gone through this entire flow and it's been rejected, We just don't want to go further anyway, so we'll just add a terminate to make this flow end. I'll search for terminate. Now we'll choose a succeeded in the terminate options. I'll hit save. Let's give this a test. So here it comes. It's looping through the member array. Now whether the team is private, it's sending an email, so we'll check that. And there's the email as intended. Now it's starting and waiting for an approval. So if we go to Teams, we'll see we have a new request with all the details again. But this time we're going to capture the outcome. So in the comments, I'll type a message. This looks like a great team. And I'm going to approve it. So let's go back to the flow and have a look. It went through the condition and it was successful. So it updated the list item. So let's have a look at this now. Let's refresh this. We can see in the list now that we have the new list item. It has been approved, and there are some approver notes. Let's double click that and have a look. And there it is. So we can see that it was approved, and we have the approve in brackets, and this looks like a great team, just like the approver put in. Perfect. Let's go back into the flow, and we're going to edit. Okay, let's scroll to the bottom of the flow. Let's collapse this condition of approval. Now that it's gone through, it's looped through all the admins, all the members, set whether or not the team was private, created an item in the list, sent an email to the requester, sent an approval to the approver, and then handle what happens after it's been approved is done. We're ready to create a team. So let's click New Step. I'm going to search for teams, and we're going to create a team. So within the team name, we will scroll to the requested name of the team that was caught by the form. And there it is, team name. Under description, I will scroll to the bottom as well and choose the team description. Let's open advanced options. Now we have visibility. We have public and private. And this is different from what we received back here with var private. We had true or false. So what we now need to do is we need to give this visibility, enter the values it's expecting. So we'll just leave this for now. I'm just going to hit save. What I'm going to do is create another variable. We'll choose initialize variable. I'm going to call this one var team visibility. It's going to be a string. I'll rename the step. Initialize var team visibility. So now we have a variable ready to receive some values. So how we're going to do this now is we're going to create another condition in order to write values to that team visibility. So I'm going to choose a control condition. I'm just going to check the var private. If var private is equal to true, what I want to do is set var team visibility. So I'll go set var. We'll choose set variable. We'll choose var team visibility, and we're going to give it the value private. Because as you see, when we create a team, it's looking for either public or private. So we'll just send. If var private is true, then we're going to make team visibility private. And I'm just going to rename that one. Set var team visibility to private. I'm going to copy this so I can use it again later and just change some values. I'll click add action. We'll set a variable again. We'll set var team visibility to public, the two options that we have. So under create team now that we have this var team visibility. We'll click on visibility and we're going to choose enter custom value. From dynamic content, we'll choose var team visibility. So that will enter the value as to whether it's public or private. Perfect. Let's just hit save. Let's give it a test. So let's follow this flow as it runs. It's looped through the admins already. It's looping through the members to create those objects. It's seeing whether the team is private or not. It created an item within the list. It sent an email, and now it's starting to wait for approval. So let's look at Outlook. We should have the email correct. We'll have a look at the SharePoint site. We have the new item at the top. It's in progress. Perfect. Exactly what it should be doing. And if we flip into Teams, we'll notice that we have a new approval request. So in here, I will put a comment. I guess I will approve this again, exclamation point. And approve. And it looked like it was true for approved. So it then entered values into the list and marked it as approved. So just refresh this and it says approved. Perfect. I will double click list item and see the notes from the approver. So I guess I'll approve it again. That's awesome. And the next step, it's set the new var team visibility variable. It checked to see which was which. So yes, it was a private team. So it marked it to private. And then it created a team named Jason's team name, or Jason's test team. So let's go into Teams and have a look. And we will see indeed that it did create Jason's test team. Perfect. But there's more to it. We also now want to set who are the members and the admins to this team. So let's go back into the flow and click Edit. Okay, so now we're going to add the users to the team. So let's just collapse these. We'll rename this one, condition is team public or private. Under create a team, I'll click new step. And we're going to apply to each. What we're going to do is we're going to apply to each of the admins. So I'll go control, apply to each. And the outputs for this one, instead of the R admins array, because that one has the objects. We don't specifically want the objects, we just want to get their names. So we did do that before with the step. Compose another admin array with outputs. So we'll use that one. That's an array that we can dip into and it will just pull back the names. For the next step, I'm going to search for people. I'm going to choose Office 365 users. And I'm going to select search for users. In the search term, I'm just going to scroll to the bottom and go current item. That way it's going to apply to each of the admins and just search for their names within the Active Directory. I'll just rename this step as well. Apply to each admin. Perfect. Now that we have that, we're going to add that member to the team. So I'll click Add in Action. I'll search for teams. We'll choose Add Member to a Team. In the team ID, we'll just enter the custom value and get back that team ID that was created when we created the team. So we'll go New Team ID. Perfect. A user principal name or AAID. So inside here, we'll select, and I'm going to choose under search for user, the user ID, because that's what Teams is expecting. So I'll do that. And again, it will do an apply to each, and that's fine. We'll just leave it as it is. I'll hit save. And now we're going to do the same with the members. So I'm going to do another apply to each. So we'll go choose an operation, control, apply to each. We'll rename this right now, apply to each member. From the output again, we're not going to use the R members because that's an array of objects. Instead, we'll use the other array that we created of compose another member array. We'll use the outputs of that because that's an array that we can also loop through, again, without the objects, but just comma-separated values that we can use. The next step, we're going to search for users. We're going to do search for users again with the Office 365 users. And the search term is going to be, scroll to the very bottom, the current item of apply to each member. So those are the names as it loops through. Now we're going to add another operation. I'm going to go to Teams, and we're going to choose Add a Member to a Team. From Team ID, again, we'll choose Custom Value. And we'll scroll to the new Team ID that was created in the step above. Under AAD ID, we will choose User ID, and again, it will do a for each loop, and that's absolutely fine. Let's go save. So I'll do a little bit of cleanup first. I'm going to delete our team that I'd created before, just so we can have a fresh, clean slate. Perfect. Let's go in and test this. It's looped through the admins, it's looped through the members. It checked to see whether it was private. It has created an item within SharePoint, so we'll give that a refresh. And there it is at the top of the list. It has created an email. We'll check that. And there's the email. And now it's waiting for an approval. So go into Teams, look in my activity, and there is indeed a request. And I'll type in "this looks great." Approved in capital letters. Done. So let's go back into the flow. We can see now it's accepted that. It's checking to see whether it was approved or rejected. It's now seeing whether the team is public or private. And writing to that variable, it's creating the team. It's now looping through all the admins, then looping through all ad members. Now that we've added the user IDs, I just realized that we've missed a step. So we'll open up the apply to each admin. We'll click on apply to each and add a member to a team. Let's drop down the show advanced options. So specifically under add a member to a team, we're in the admin loop. So let's have a look at this. It's asking whether or not the newly added members should be owners or admins. We'll say yes. And for the members, we'll say no. So the idea is that when it loops through the admins, it's going to make them owners, and it's going to make the members not owners. So before I run that, I'm just going to hit save. I'm just going to do a bit of Teams cleanup. And I'll delete a previous test team. Perfect. Okay, let's give this a test now. Let's loop through the admins and the members, check to see if it's private, created an item in the SharePoint list. We'll refresh that, have a look. And there it is at the top, perfect. It created the email, let's have a look. And there's our email, perfect. Go back to the flow, it's waiting for an approval. So we'll go to Teams, check the activity. As an approver, I will make a comment. I will approve it. Let's watch the flow continue. Perfect. Checking to see if the team is visible or not. Setting that variable here in the condition. Creating the team with the information from above, including the team visibility. Now it's looping through the admins and adding them to the team. And finally, looping through the members and adding them to the team as well, but only as members and not admins. And now our flow is done. So let's go into Teams and have a look. Within Teams, you'll notice there is a new Jason's test team. Absolutely perfect, auto-generated. I'll click on the ellipsis and go to Manage Team. We'll have a look here. We can see indeed my admins are added. and our 3 members are added underneath. Perfect. Let's go back to our flow now. I'm going to click Edit. Okay, now that we're back into the flow, let's test it to see what happens if something is rejected. So I'm going to go into Forms. I'm going to create a new request. I'm going to call this team another test. Here is another description. For admins this time, I'm just going to put only one person. And in members, I'll put some others. And this time we'll say the team is not private. And I'll hit Submit. Now let's go into our flows and have a look. You can see it is running. It's already starting and waiting for an approval. So that's perfect. So if we do have a look, we should see that it is in progress with our 1 admin, but 4 members. Perfect. So as an admin, I'm going to reject this. I reject this request. And I'm going to hit reject. Let's go back into the flow and have a look. We will see that it went to the condition of approval. It was rejected, so it went down the terminate branch, and that's the end of our flow. So it didn't create the team, nothing else happened. You can see it didn't even go down to those steps there. Let's go into the list and have a look, and we should see it is rejected. It did not check it off as a private team, just like we anticipated. And if I click on the item, we'll see the notes with rejected and that I had rejected this request. Perfect. Okay, let's do a little bit of tidying up here. So if the request has been rejected, let's let the person know. So we'll go into the flow, we'll edit. And under condition of approval, let's go down the no branch for the rejected. And after this apply to each, we'll just add another action. And we'll search for Outlook. Again, we'll choose send an email. And we'll put the name of the person who requested it, the responder's email. Team request rejected. Your request for the team, I'll put the team name in quotes, has been rejected. Perfect, I'll just hit save. And at the end, let's let them know if the request has been accepted. So again, we'll use Outlook, send an email. We'll put in the requester's email or responder's email, and we'll say team created. Your request for team, again, we'll throw in the team name, has been approved, exclamation point. I'll hit save. So let's test this out with both scenarios. I'll choose automatically, the previously used trigger, and that is how you use Power Automate to automate the process of requesting, approving, and creation of Microsoft Teams. Thank you for joining me today on how to use Power Automate to automatically create teams using Forms, Power Automate, Teams, and Outlook. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and leave your comments below. And please visit my channel again to see how did Jason do that. And until next time, keep experimenting with the Microsoft 365 offerings. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Please check out some of my other videos.